So, should you cycle your supplements? And especially around your menstrual cycle, if you're a woman, the answer is yes and no. Some people would do well to cycle their supplements, and some people don't need to. It's going to be quite individual. Some supplements that are wise to cycle regardless of a menstrual cycle or not are going to be the supplements that more influence hormones. Straight out the gate, that will be like vitamin D. Melatonin will influence hormones. Then if you're taking something specifically to enhance hormones, maybe ashwagandha, tonkat ali, fulvic acid, even some sort of exogenous type of hormone, those may be wise, because as you know, your hormones go in cycles. So not only do you not want to disrupt the cycle too much, you don't want to say to your body, hey, like, I'm taking over creating all these hormones with this external aid. You want your body to still be able to stop and make its own hormones, for instance melatonin. So when it comes to supplements, the body can adapt in that aspect. And many people have asked me about cycling caffeine or coffee. And that in itself can be a very good idea, because your body will adapt to caffeine amounts. And in some people, even just stopping caffeine for 2 days and then reintroducing it, let's say they're getting ready for a big exam and they want to peak their focus and their cognitive performance, they'll take a break from caffeine for 2 days, go back into it on the third day, and they are sharp as hell and their memory recall is great. So there are some molecules, shall we call them, that you will adapt to. So caffeine is one of them, but those hormonal ones for sure. So I did mention vitamin D, and I don't want people to stress too much about that, because vitamin D obviously very popular with people now. A lot of people will come off vitamin D in the summer. I don't necessarily agree with that. There is research, and again, I mentioned Dr. Jack Kruse a lot. There is a lot of research indicating that even though we're getting a lot of sun in the summer and we're getting the heat, because of our latitude, those rays are still not as strong as they would be around the equator for helping us synthesize our own vitamin D. So my clients, a lot of them will still take vitamin D in the summer brighter months, but in a lower dose, and then we'll bump it in the winter if we notice some sort of depression or sadness or seasonal affective disorder kick in, which happens to a lot of people, unfortunately. But anything that maybe alters your hormones, yes. And then you can fluctuate doses like people would with magnesium. They might have their baseline dose just for metabolic function and optimal health, but then maybe they need a little bit of help with sleep or exercise or maybe constipation, so they're going to increase the dose. And even going through stages of like pain and inflammation with the likes of krill oil. We might have our baseline maintenance level for good health, and then if we get an injury or we have some sort of systemic inflammation or something going on, we'll superdose that, and then do that for a while, bring it back down. So there's these fluctuation in the doses as well. You could totally cycle if you wanted to potentially resensitize yourself. But the way it is with supplements is some people aren't going to notice a big difference if they do cycle, because there's a couple of reasons. A lot of people who take supplements, they're already kind of taking care of their health, especially in regards to nutrition. So they're getting a lot of these nutrients out of their food, but also their levels have already been met. And a lot of supplements, especially the fat soluble ones, they'll hang around in your body for a while. Even magnesium will hang around in your body for a few days until you deplete it. The ones that we would lose the fastest are going to be our B vitamins and our vitamin C, and then magnesium based on like our stress level. If we kind of overtaxed ourselves in our workout or work, it's stressful, or home life or something like that. But most will kind of hang around for a couple of days, so you may not even notice the difference there, taking them out and coming back in regards to like if you were trying to boost and optimize hormones, you may be looking at taking a week or two off it. And so we would do this with the likes of Vitex or chasteberry. So chasteberry is something that gets used to regulate the female cycle, so the menstrual cycle. So generally with Vitex, what we're doing is we're doing either 21 days or 20 days on, which is taking it on. And then we take a 7-day break, which is where you're supposed to have your menses or your bleed. And then you start again then on day 8, because we don't want the Vitex interrupting with the release of all those hormones during your bleed. Ashwagandha is another one. A lot of people will use ashwagandha for helping them relax and reduce cortisol and anxiety and aid with sleep. But a lot of people don't know that ashwagandha will directly influence estrogen and testosterone. So that's also a consideration if you're, say, a woman and you're already dealing with estrogen dominance, and maybe you've got a lot of stress in your life, and maybe your DHEA is low and your progesterone is low because of the stress, and your doctor or prescriber gives you ashwagandha to try relax you and bring the cortisol down, but the ashwagandha could potentially be bringing your estrogen up even more and making your symptoms even worse. So there's that to be considered. In that case, you may want to cycle the ashwagandha. You may want to not take ashwagandha during the first half of your cycle where you're already naturally building estrogen. You don't want to build even more estrogen. And then maybe use ashwagandha to, in that last luteal phase where the body is generally more stressed, progesterone's peaking, you've got the PMS, potentially sleep issues going on there. And then I would wonder if you would even take ashwagandha during the bleed. Depends on how severe. I mean, if your period is pretty bad, you probably could take the ashwagandha to get some release there. Other practitioners will talk about, I've seen them talk about cycling magnesium around the menstrual cycle, although I think most people should be taking magnesium daily and then maybe increase around PMS and the menstrual cycle. But I have seen other practitioners, their clients are not taking magnesium, and then they only take magnesium in that last week or two of the cycle before the menses. What you could do there is not magnesium, in my opinion, and I'm only directing my followers and my people, but one thing you could cycle would be B6, so vitamin B6. Generally, we only use that in the luteal phase, so the last half of your cycle. So vitamin B6 can be very helpful for PMS and relieving periods or menses symptoms. So bringing that in the last week or two can be really helpful. So you would be cycling that. You could also do that with iodine as well. You could cycle iodine in the last week or two before the period to really help with those PMS and pre-period symptoms, and even during your period to get relief from the aches, pains, inflammation. And even the B6 can be very helpful with that histamine response that many of us experience during our period, in the flushing, the rashes, the bowel movements, the migraines, the whole lot. So you could cycle those. I don't think it's necessary for most people, and really most people being the key word there, to cycle their supplements. You can bring in supplements at different stages, like I just mentioned, depending on your cycle, to help with PMS or to help with aches or pains or migraines or whatever you're dealing with at that time. But unless you're like a very refined athlete or scientist or biohacker, or like you're really refining yourself, I don't think it's necessary for most people to cycle their supplements. Caffeine, like I mentioned, you could. Most people, though, I find they're just having caffeine to one, because they enjoy it, they like a coffee in the morning, and it just helps them get their day started. They're not necessarily using it for cognitive performance benefits or for studying for an exam, although I know a few of you are, so maybe this will be helpful. And just a side note, another one that is great for cognitive performance is going to be rosemary tea, and then GABA can really help with focus. And GABA could even be, now that I'm thinking, another one that we could potentially cycle or fluctuate. I use GABA regularly, but I will take breaks from it. So GABA is a neurotransmitter hormone in the brain. Some people need it daily just to get through their days because of anxiety and adrenaline. Some people will just use it for focus, for studying, which it's amazing for. And some people go to a stressful patch in their lives and they need it to help with sleep. So then maybe they just take it for a week or two to help their body get used to sleeping again. And I try to explain it like that to my clients. So we're trying to re-regulate your sleep cycles and push down your adrenaline and cortisol. But the easiest way to understand it is you're getting your body used to sleeping properly again. So you take GABA for a week or two, and then you mightn't take it for another while until you need it. So I hope that's helpful, because again, for most people, for the average person, I don't think you need to worry about cycling supplements. And if you do, quote, worry about that, that's just adding extra stress into a life that's already potentially stressful. And especially if you're on a health journey, that can be stressful, dare I say, for a lot of people. And then to start going, oh no, I shouldn't be taking this here, and I should be taking this here, and I should be cycling this and that, that's just going to cause more stress. And what happens to people then? Then they just throw in the towel, they just give up. So yeah, don't worry about cycling your supplements, but bring in extra supplements or increase your supplement dose as you need it. Okay. All right. Let me know if you have questions. Hope that was helpful. Have a great day.